Hello, everyone. It's David here again with the fake accent and the glasses and all that weird stuff that I put in my videos. And that's my logo again. I didn't change it at all. I don't know why I'm pointing it out, but, just look at it. Looks fabulous, I think. I have no idea. And today I'm going to be touching on a very harsh subject, huh? So, hear me out.
Get to the point, man. This is just clickbait, guys. Yeah, tell us why you're sexy. Get to the point, man.
Yes, I'm getting to it. I have this weird opinion that I carry around in myself because I can't really express it in public because of the mass media and how everyone takes things nowadays. I don't really jive with the idea that there's anything like equality in humankind, right? There's this thing, right? There's this weird thing. I've always talked about this because it's part of like how the human mind like arranges things, right? There's this ability we have as human beings where we just kind of feel like we need to classify things. We need to categorize things, and that causes a lot of issues. Okay, this is the reason I feel like I don't know. This is a very weird topic because this is gonna be branching me into a lot of things. The first thing is human beings in general. One of the things that I feel makes us special is because of our abilities to categorize. It's because we have this ability, this innate ability, and I guess curiosity as well, to want to put things into groups to make things more understandable. And that seems to work for us, except when it doesn't. And equality is one of those things, right? So when we group things together, because like to communicate, like I feel like that's one of the main reasons to communicate. We have to group things together so that we can all just point at something and say something, or just communicate. Pass what's the best way to put it? Pass knowledge from one person to the other the fastest way we can, which is usually the speed of sound or sight. Sight usually works faster, but there's still the issue where you kind of have to see that thing to notice it, whereas your ears are always working. If you know what I mean. I'm getting deep already because I feel like this is the best way to go about this kind of explanation without spiting too many people. So this is the thing. Because of our abilities, because of this whole thing we have for classifying and categorizing things, there's a big issue that stems up from this, right? And this is like my biggest beef of all when it comes to this issue, is that we do the inverse sometimes. It's like our brains are used to classifying things for communication, and then it gets to a point where we see something that looks similar enough, and we just group that as well with the other things we know, no matter how much difference there could be. And the problem with the brain is, also one of the good things about the brain is, when we reinforce any form of knowledge, it sticks longer because there are literally synapses in our brains, neurons firing and moving from one spot to the other. There's actually translocation going on in the brain that helps for remembrance, helps long-term memory, helps longevity. That was a very weird way to pronounce that. But because of this system that our brains do, there's also this weird issue where if we learn the wrong thing or we learn something that isn't inherently logical or right in any way, that sticks longer and it's harder to erase that feeling. It's very, very hard to do that. And this is just the brain at work. So back to equality. Why did I start this up with equality? Is because we have been cultured. Our brains have been intertwined and fired and neurologically translocated in a way to think or to accept the whole jive when it comes to equality, right? When it comes to a community of people, of a species that's from the same lineage, and feel like those things from that species, everything that comes from that species, is inherently parts of the same group, right? But then there's a big problem with that. There's a very fundamental issue with this. When you group two things that come from the same system together as one thing, as a whole, then the brain just kind of quickly puts itself into this sort of automated mode of feeling like it should classify these things together. Everything for these two should be equal. Everything should be systematically equal. And getting into our fundamental nomenclature, English language, for example, as one of the go-to languages, has this fundamental issue where we need to classify things, right? It helps with every form of language. I think most languages do this. Pretty much every one of them does this to communicate anything. And the issue with it is when you classify too much, you kind of lose sight of the differences that are there. And when one side of people or one set of people are classified a certain way and another set of people are classified another way, then they behave appropriately, based on their understanding on how they think that they should behave. That's how they think they're brought up to be. And the reason I'm going through this long-winded way of explaining my very straight-up opinion that I don't think people are equal is when it comes to systems of human nature, systems of human living and everything, and we classify people the same, there's a fundamental issue, right? If you saw two praying mantises, you saw a male and female praying mantis, and you saw two of them and you were like, they look pretty much alike. Usually the female is a little bigger than the male. That's just part of biology. But they look similar, right? They look green. They have the prayer hands and everything. That's kind of why they call them praying mantis. And you see them and you're like, okay, this is male, this is female. They're both green. They have all the properties. Okay, they're both from the same insecta phylum or something. You're like, okay, so they're the same, right? They're equal. Well, most of us now will be like, nah, that doesn't make sense. This doesn't really relate well, because it's like you're not talking about animals. When you're talking about animals and you're dealing with human beings, no. I'm being very subjective in this video in the sense that we should not classify things based on how they stem from or where they stem from, based on like their routine, if you get what I mean. We should not look at things like, okay, this is from this region, so it should be this. That's kind of what causes racism in the first place, when you really think about it. And the problem with this, like the biggest issue with this whole thing is when we allocate properties to each of these classifications. When we say, okay, for the classifications of human beings, the main thing I'm going to, male, female, or, in between. The problem with the classifications is when we assign properties to male and feel like we should accept that we are all equal and we are all from the same species, human beings, then we feel like we should put the same equal priority on male as we do on female. Now that's a bit of a problem, right? Like, think about it. Based on my praying mantis analogy, I know it doesn't really work as well because praying mantis, male and female, have this very specific thing where, like, for example, when they give birth, when the female praying mantis gives birth, a lot of us kind of already know where this is going. Like, the female praying mantis eats the head of the male praying mantis. Shocking to some people who didn't already know that, but in case you did know that already, you can get what I'm getting to, right? The female will always eat the head of the male praying mantis for sustenance, to take care of the child, other stuff, because it's hard for insects to find food and stuff. They're not exactly like, bosses of the jungle. But you see where I'm going? The female has already been given a rule based on her genetic code that she should do this, she needs to do this. And the male has already been given its own genetic code that it should do this as well, or that he should do this. But when we deal with human beings now and we look at it from our egotistic understanding, which is just nature for you, and we feel like, okay, first of all, it did start the actual way it was supposed to be, except with a fundamental flaw. Okay, this is getting deeper and deeper as I go, but try to stick with me, right? I'm going to come back to a nice conclusive ending, but just try to stick with me. That's why this is a podcast. So for the females in the past, the way the males treated the females in the past was inherently very, very abusive. Why? Because due to our overclassification of things as nature, as human beings, we put that classification as male dominant, female not dominant, or submissive, as some people say. I know it sounds very sexual, but that's what I'm going for. But you understand, they put it that way. They classified them the wrong way. Why do I think this is the wrong way? Because
if you have to put strict classifications on everything generally, you kind of just miss the point of science, of the universe. You can't generalize anything. Even scientists till today, whenever they find a meaning, like a reason to anything, a law of physics or anything, when they make all these theories, there's a reason they call them theories unless they can not be proven otherwise, and then they refer to them as laws, right? But it's pretty damn clear. Male and female have different tasks. They have different things they can do. They have different biologies in each one of them. But the inherent truth is, if you classify male to do one thing and classify female to do one thing, and based on just the way human beings are, females can do some things that males can also do, and sometimes males can do some things that females can't do, or females can do some things that males can't do, and like it goes on and on. When you classify people too broadly, it loses a lot of that impact, that feeling, that ability. People now feel like they need to adhere, like they need to limit themselves because of these classifications, and that's the problem. That's a problem with classifications in general. I don't think human beings are equal. Why? Because I feel like we shouldn't be classified as the same thing. We're all different. We just come from the same stem. It's like saying brother and sister. Are they equal? Obviously not. But male and female, are they equal? Yeah, they are equal. Gender equal? No, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. And I'm not even going to go deep enough to like start talking about how you should treat the male, how you should treat it. No, that's based on preference, right? That's completely just user preference, basically. Because if you go deep into that, and it leads to a longer discussion of like, where should we place priorities? Should we treat female this way? Should we accept the behavior of male this way? Should we do this? Should we do that? That's all based on preference, on specific preference. Because if I go ahead and generalize that this is the way males should be treated, this is the way females should be treated, then I'm also classifying them again. That's going back to the old-fashioned wrong way of classification. But I don't think we're equal either. I don't think we're equal, and I don't think we're completely unequal. I think we're special. I think we're individuals. And I know this sounds cliche already. This is getting to that whole, like, I don't know, saucy way of putting things, where it's like, okay, you're all special. You're all snowflakes. You're all special. You're all this. But factually, you are, right? Like, it's annoying that we've generalized as well that when someone says something in a specific way, this is where they're going, you know? There's no element of surprise anymore, because that's kind of fundamental knowledge in humanity, but that's what kept us stuck where we were in the past before innovators looked at it the other way and went, but what if we saw it loosely? What if we didn't restrict anything to anything? If you notice in pretty much anything, mathematics, for example, I'm going to get a little nerdy here because this is the best way I need to explain things. In mathematics, we have this whole thing where if you want to derive a formula, you want to derive the way a person a long time ago who racked his brain to understand something or to create a certain formula like the quadratic equation or something, if you wanted to derive that formula, for example, what would you do, right? You would have to separate the first equation, you know, the base equation, like for example the quadratic equation, into a section of different parts. So you basically have to divide it. You have to no longer see it as one thing, as a specific classification, and spread it out into a non-classified, non-organized, non-ordered type of scenario, which we will still order, because we will still call that something else, because that's just kind of part of humanity. It's the easiest way to communicate, like I said, but you have to spread it. You have to switch off that idea of it has to be this, and because it has to be this is how I will treat this. Instead, you have to spread it out. You have to look at it from another dimension. And when you look at things from another dimension, that brings into light the whole understanding, the whole meaning of actual reality, which is back to our whole equality discussion. You shouldn't feel like if a person or a specific class of person or a group of people or a specific race of people or this,
is certain way, then they should react this same way, or then you should treat them this same way based on whatever you're doing. And yes, this is me speaking. I'm preaching to the choir right here. I'm sure a lot of people understand this, but really try to understand this, because it pisses me off that a lot of people do know this, but a lot of people don't. And a lot of people right now are watching this video and going, yeah, of course, this is just common sense. No, it's not. Okay, this is not common sense. That's the reason I was pushed enough to make this video. It's because people don't think like this. And if you do think like this, then congrats. You're one of the 1%. But that's a very small percentage out of 100, because a lot of people don't think like this. A lot of people feel like they need to classify male, female, non-gendered, this. There's a reason why people feel woke when they discover, other genders are allowed to be treated the way the male and female genders that we already have are. And why do you think that is? Go back to my analogy of categorization. They broke it. They broke that category. They broke the male and female dynamic, and they went for whatever else. They went for the 3 dimensions instead of the 2 dimensions. They went for 4 dimensions instead. They went for multiple dimensions. Why did they do that? Because it helps, because that's a better way of thinking. Thinking male, thinking female, cool. But don't use that to reappropriate the way you treat other people. Don't think a female should like something, or a male should appreciate something, or should understand something. No one should do anything, okay? Everyone is a product of your upbringing. That's what I've always said. Anytime I see anyone behave any way they behave, no matter who the person is, and I mean no matter who the person is, and I mean literally psychopaths, murderers, all of them. No matter who you are a product of your upbringing, or a mix of a product of your upbringing and your DNA, your genetics. That literally affects everything about you. A little switch, a little clip off your DNA, a little thing changed in your DNA or your genetic structure, that's a completely different person. And that's biology for you. That's just a fact. And the faster people accept this fundamental fact, the better the world will be, because we need to kind of grasp in our brains that, yeah, you can be this when you're classified as that. You can appreciate this when you're people who are similar to you or rooted the same as you appreciate that, because that's just human nature for you. And this is like forward thinking. This is a way of passing down forward thinking. And the reason I picked equality is because that's a very big one. I see so many freaking videos online where people like do this stupid thing. This is one of my pet peeves, because I don't like when people just like buy cameras, buy microphone, and buy like rent a room or something, or maybe decorate a room in your house with a big table and chairs around, and connect those Shure SM70 or whatever Shure microphones to the table, and then they just start discussing what they know absolutely nothing about, with no rhyme, no reason, no logic, nothing. It's just pure discussions. And then there is this one person that always makes the videos go viral, that says something that sparks people's brains, and either makes the people who watch the video go, God, that's stupid, or go, wow, that's the right way to think. That's my girl right there. This should be normal. Okay, this should be normal. This is how people should think. Don't binarize. I don't know how do I use binary as a verb? How do I use binary how do I do that? There's probably a better way to put this, but don't make your thinking or your logic for other people, for other genders, for other types or groups of people based on a 2-dimensional platform. And now, this is another thing that I wanted to get to. As we're not equal, right? That's my whole thing. We're not equal. So how should we treat females? How should we treat males? You ask. You find out. You do your research. You look at them, you see how they behave, you talk to them, you try to figure things out. You can literally just ask them. What movies do you like? I like this. Oh, you don't like romantic movies? I thought lots of girls like romance and romantic comedies. Where I'm not lots of girls. I'm one girl. I'm one person. That's how it should be. You should understand that people are not always the same just because they are classified the same. The classification is just a human thing. It's just a way we think. And I don't think this is even specifically human. I think this is just easier to classify as human because, that's kind of how we've always done things. But based on my own knowledge, I feel like this is a specifically human thing because we're the most mentally advanced and the most, brains are calling other brains advanced. But like, this is the thing. You should just accept that people can be anyhow they want to be. And this goes both positively and negatively. I don't think women should be treated, I don't think women should be treated the exact same way men are. I don't think that, because it doesn't make any sense. There are literally things in their biology that make them very different from every other guy, from people with the XY chromosome, people with the XX chromosome, and people with the XY chromosome. They're very different. Why do you think they're called XY and X? Why do you think they classify them like that? It's because they're biologically and genetically different people. Which is kind of why even scientists go down to people talk about how do I put this? Twins, identical twins, and how even identical twins could have different fingerprints. Why do you think they have different fingerprints? You think that's just like a special character feature that God sprinkled on them when he made them in the lab? No, it's because they're different genetically just enough that their fingerprints happen to just be different. The customization of their skin growth was different. Why was it different? Because they're different. They just look exactly the same in a lot of ways. And you know how birth works, how identical twins happen. It's because of it's usually either two sperms fertilize one egg, or one egg, two eggs were fertilized by one sperm, which is extremely difficult. I don't even really see how that happens. It does happen, I guess. Or maybe one egg was fertilized and it's split or something. It's been a long time. But I think it's usually two sperms fertilize one egg at the same time, and that leads to two human beings being created at the same time in one egg or one sack. So because of that, people now generalize as well, and they're like, okay, they're from the same egg, so they're the same person. If you saw two chickens come out of the same egg, and you were like, okay, so they're a twin chicken, do you immediately go, oh, so they're exactly the same? No. But why is it so hard to use that same logical reasoning for human beings? Why? Because we're powerful, because we're top of the food chain, because we're like the things, we're like the main things, we're taking over the planets, we're taking over everything, so we feel like we're so much more subjective than everything else. And that's not true. That's not logical. There's nothing logical about that. And that's my pet peeve in this whole thing. That's why I think that, personally, there's no equality in humankind. There's just humankind with differences, with different people, with different classes that we just classify because we feel like classifying things, because it makes it easier to understand. And that's it. But there's no actual similarity. Every person is different. Every woman is different. Every man is different. Every woman is different from every man. Every man is different from every woman. Some women might be exactly the same as some men. Some men might be exactly the same as some women in some things. But they're not the same. They're just not the same people. There's a huge barrier. There's a huge mental block for a lot of people when it comes to this topic, and that's what I wanted to touch on. Because I don't like seeing videos where people just talk about how when a guy does this thing, the guy is treated this way, whereas when the woman does it, and then everyone's like, yeah, that's true. And then 99% of the population still believe that. Why has nothing changed? Why do we know this and nothing happened? Why did Newton spend all that time discovering things and doing all this? Why did Albert Einstein spend so much time understanding theory of relativity and gravity and all this stuff, and no one applies it to anything? Why? Don't you notice that all the innovations that happen in the world happen because some people, which we classify as scientists usually, or philosophers or whatever, decided to take those understandings, those findings by those people in the past into consideration, and then use that to get to the next step. That's how everything works. That's how innovation works. Innovation is literally just a property of taking experimental understanding and making that into something else. It's just something to something else. That's literally what innovation is. But you have to start with something. And that something has to be based on some kind of logic. And when you just base your logic on, oh, they look alike, so they're probably, yeah, oh, she has breasts, oh, she has, this one has this. That's a very dumb, that's a very, very harmful way of thinking. Anyway, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This is hard to do because most people would look at this video now and be like, okay, what's this guy up to? What's he gonna talk about? And then they don't get the point of the message. They watch the video and their minds are still blocked mentally to thinking one way, and then we kind of run into the same problem all over again. So please, 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 if you can, share this video, talk about it with your friends. It's a fun topic. It breaks the ice. It's helpful. It's helpful to think like this. It's enriching. It helps the brain when you think about things deeply, when you understand things. This is why people meditate. But it's fine. It's fine if you don't want to understand. Fine. We all have our abilities to choose whatever we want to do. But definitely, I would love to make another video about something similar to this very soon. So if you guys like this video, leave a like, comment, say all the stuff you can say, talk about this, say whatever you want, and I'll be reading all the comments and maybe talking about them in the next video. So thank you for watching this video. This has been fun. This has been a nice thing to get out of my chest because it's been there for a long time. It's been holding me down. Anyway, have fun, you beautiful people. I will see you guys next time. That doesn't make sense. You guys will see me next time. I've said that before. Oh God, what the hell is wrong with me? Get out of here, okay?